Chapter 16. Marie. It's beautiful, darling, as only you could make it. Charles placed a loving arm about his wife's shoulders. Side by side, they admired the Christmas tree in their festively bedecked parlor. It stood lovely and tall, the piece de resistance of Marie's holiday decor expertise, with its shimmering glass ornaments, crimson velvet bows, and even candied pears and sugar plums. Marie leaned against Charles, bouncing a chubby baby boy in her arms. Despite having been married for nearly a decade, she still adored the way her husband lit up whenever she revealed the hard work she had done to bring the Christmas spirit alive in their home. It was always as though he were seeing it all for the first time through the eyes of a young child. "How do you make something so simple appear so magical every year?" Charles asked. Marie smiled. "It's not magic," she replied, "just imagination." The baby reached eagerly toward a shiny ornament, and Marie gently backed him away. Prince," she hissed. "You're much too little for those." She nuzzled his cheek, making the baby laugh. Though he was barely a year old, crumbs from his first taste of ginger biscuit stuck like paste around his lips. Suddenly, the parlor burst open. 6-year-old Clara and 8-year-old Louise bounced into the room. "Mother! Father!" Clara shouted. "Is it Christmas yet? Is it?" A strand of shiny metal bits connected by a string dangled from her hand. They clattered across the parlor floor as she hurried toward the Christmas tree. "Almost, my darling little mechanic." Marie handed baby Fritz to Charles and swept Clara up in a hug. "Now, what tinkering present have you brought me?" "I made Father Christmas's sleigh." Clara held up her handiwork. The bits hanging along the string were not bits at all, but rather tiny reindeer assembled out of gears and wires. At the end was a paper sleigh with a miniature red cushion attached for Santa to sit on. It was a perfect, but for a 6-year-old, it was pretty clever. "How lovely!" Marie exclaimed. "Father Christmas would be very pleased." It warmed Marie's heart to see Clara taking such an interest in tinkering. Both her daughters made her so proud. Louise had inherited Charles' quiet confidence and strength, the very traits Marie had fallen in love with all those years ago. Friends of the family often remarked how Louise carried herself with impressive grace for a child of her age. Marie marveled how her firstborn was already turning into a proper young lady. Sometimes she would secretly observe Louise playing with her dolls and tea set from around the corner. Her daughter never let a single drop of tea spill or a tiny crumb fall. Marie even had to stifle giggles when Louise instructed her stuffed animals on the finger points of manners. If only a stuffed bear could watch where it stepped with its muddy paw prints, that would be something indeed. But Clara, her precious little Clara, she had inherited Marie's mechanical ingenuity. Marie recognized the spark right away when, at just 3 years old, Clara had grabbed her father's gleaming pocket watch from the table and asked, "How does it work?" Now that Clara was older, Marie had started to introduce her to basic tinkering concepts, but she would need to move her to more complicated lessons soon. Clara would not be content tinkering model Santa sleighs for long. "And when the time is right," Marie thought happily, "I will show Clara the realms." Not yet, but one day. Marie touched noses with Clara, and the little girl giggled. "Clara, that sleigh is too small for Father Christmas." Louise sat upon the sofa and smoothed her dress. "He won't fit." "It's just pretend." Clara rolled her eyes. "But Father Christmas is magic. Maybe he could fit." "He's still as big as us," Louise pointed out. "Then how does he fit down the chimney?" Clara stuck out her tongue. "Never mind, my dears," Charles laughed. "I'm sure Father Christmas will fit just as well in both his sleigh and the chimney tonight. Now come, it's Christmas Eve, and your mother and I have a surprise for you." one gift to open each before heading to Godfather Drosselmeyer's party. Hooray! Clara and Louise cheered, forgetting all about gears and chimneys and disagreements. The family sat together in front of the tree, skirts and legs crisscrossing upon the carpet. "I'm so glad we could give them this," Marie whispered to her husband as the girls began opening their presents. "It means the world to them, and me." "Did your parents let you open one present on Christmas Eve when you were little?" Charles asked. Marie rested her head on his shoulder. "I wish I could remember." The memories from her life before the fire were distant and fuzzy, the details scattered away by time. "I do remember the feeling, though, the love, and I've always wanted this, a family of our very own to share Christmas Eve with. You've made my dreams come true." Charles kissed her lightly on the head. "We did it together," he said. Clara suddenly bounced back into her mother's lap. She held a wind-up toy she just opened, and Marie could see her clever darling was already peeking inside the tiny apparatus to determine how it worked. Marie hugged Clara close, breathing in the soft scent of her hair. "That we did," she whispered to Charles. Heaps of mechanical bits and bobs lay scattered about Drosselmeyer's workshop. Marie watched eagerly as Clara, now 12 years old, crouched in front of an open control panel and tinkered away inside an enormous mechanical cylinder. The entire apparatus was perched atop a large circular platform with life-sized animal figurines stationed around the perimeter. Clara was up to her elbows in wires and gears, clinking and clacking her tools away. "It's not working," Clara declared with aggravation. "I can't figure it out." "Do not give up, my clever mechanic," Marie encouraged. "You made it too hard this time," Clara insisted. "I can barely figure out which wires I'm working with, let alone reconfigure them. They're tangled like a rat's nest." "There's a way to figure it out," Marie assured her. "There's always a way." Drosselmeyer was with them, observing Clara's efforts alongside Marie. "Perhaps if you reverse the mechanism," he suggested helpfully. Shush," Marie hushed him. "Don't give her hints." Drosselmeyer shrugged. "I seem to remember a young mechanic who would get rather frustrated when I wouldn't give her hints." "She'll get it," Marie said with confidence. "She's my clever girl, after all." Meanwhile, Clara grunted as she forced a stubborn screw to twist loose from deep inside the contraption. It clattered to the ground, and she quickly scrambled to nab it and place it securely in her tool pouch. Then she carefully selected 2 wires, one red and one blue, from the tangled labyrinth of electrical cables, and switched their positioning. With a twist of her screwdriver, she secured them back into place and leaned back to wipe her brow, accidentally streaking oil across her forehead as she did so. "That might do the trick," she said thoughtfully. "Do you think so, Mother?" "There's only one way to find out," Marie said. "Turn the handle." Clara reached for a crank handle on the side of the cylinder, and with a visible deep breath, forced it round and round. Sparks flew inside the cylinder. A grinding rumble echoed beneath the platform, and then, slowly, the circular platform began to turn. The animals bobbed up and down, some spiraling in place, and wobbly carnival music began to play. It was a perfect carousel, not quite as large as one that could be found at a fair, but big enough to accommodate a handful of riders. "It worked!" Clara clapped her hands. "I did it!" "I knew you could." Marie jumped up onto the carousel base and whirled her around, never minding the oil that streaked from her daughter's hands onto her own pretty dress. "Well done," Drosselmeyer nodded in approval. "Well done indeed." "Godfather's hint did help," Clara admitted. "Nonsense," Marie said. "I saw you tinkering with the wires in there. You knew you could reverse whatever mischief I'd done. Everything you needed was inside." "Inside the control panel?" Clara asked. "Of course. I just wasn't sure how to reconfigure the wires to get it started." No, my darling. Marie tapped Clara's forehead, leaving a messy fingerprint upon her lovely daughter's brow. In here. Everything you needed was right in here. Clara beamed. Marie could tell her daughter was very, very proud. Then Clara returned her attention to the smoothly rotating carousel. What shall we do with it? It's too large to stay in Godfather's workshop. As I have been saying for many months now, Drosselmeyer chuckled, you two young ladies have taken over my workshop with your lessons. The hint of a smile crossed Marie's lips. I think I might have a place for it, she said. Where? Clara asked. Marie shook her head. You'll have to trust me. That is a lesson for another day. Do you remember what it was like back then? Sugarplum asked Marie the question late one night in the realms. They were seated on the snowy banks of the frozen skating pond, looking up at the distant stars. The citizens of the land of snowflakes had long since retired to bed, but just for tonight, Marie wanted to stay awake as long as possible to make up for lost time. Yes, Marie replied. I remember the excitement, like magic the moment I stepped through the passageway. You were always there to meet me. Sugarplum listened, but didn't respond. It had been a very, very long time since Marie had visited the realms. Too long, Marie realized. She hadn't meant for so much time to slip away since her last visit. But with her husband and the children, and her tinkering lessons for Clara, the days had a way of flying by before she'd even realized they'd gone. She knew it wasn't fair to leave Sugarplum for so long without any explanation. So, as a special surprise, she had planned a full day to spend with her while Uncle Drosselmeyer watched the children. She and Sugarplum could go ice skating, or race through the flower fields, or bake ginger snaps. Anything Sugarplum wished. Really. Drosselmeyer had promised to cover for Marie while she was away, should anyone notice her absence. But Sugarplum seemed different, Marie thought. Distant. As though a mask covered her fair features and Marie couldn't quite see beyond it. What do you remember most? Marie asked her. From the old days. Sugarplum shrugged. Not very much, she said. Really? Marie asked, hurt. It's been a long time since then, Sugarplum replied. It's hard to remember that far back. Awkward silence fell between them. Marie was at a loss for what to say. Has all been well with Regents? She finally asked. I suppose, Sugarplum said. Well, except for Mother Ginger. Marie frowned. What do you mean? She's always wandering around the palace rather than minding her land of amusement. The words were tinged with sarcasm as Sugarplum spoke. Never a day goes by where she isn't polishing your crown. Oh, Marie started. I may have asked her to do that once. She had a way of making it sparkle that I couldn't. It was just a silly request. I had no idea she was still doing it. Marie looked to Sugarplum, but her friend's gaze remained directed toward the stars. I can ask her to stop if you like, Marie said. Sugarplum shrugged again. It's not that important. I just assumed she fancied trying it on when no one was looking. Marie opened her mouth to reply, but she couldn't find the words. She had hoped for a long while now that Sugarplum would grow closer with the other Regents, but that she would start a life intertwined with them and all the citizens of the realms. That was why she had made the Regents in Dewdrop in the first place, to be there for Sugarplum when she wasn't. The Regents were the same as Sugarplum, after all, ageless, all brought to life by the engine. Marie did age, and she wouldn't be there forever, but surely Sugarplum must know that. Sugarplum, she started hesitantly, there's something I've been meaning to talk. Take me with you, Sugarplum said suddenly. Where? Marie replied. We could go anywhere you wish. This is your special day. To the real world. Sugarplum said, pressing. I want to go back with you. You're always there and never here, and I want to be where you are. Marie shook her head. You know I can't. There must be some way, Sugar Plum insisted. An engine you could build in the real world. I was the magic toy that made the engine work in the first place. Maybe it could happen again. Surely you can think of something. Marie wanted very badly to make her friend happy, but what she was asking for was impossible. I don't know how, she said, and I don't know what would happen to you. Do you not want me there? Sugar Plum whispered. Oh no, Marie exclaimed. I wish very much I could bring you with me. The children would so love to meet you. At that, Sugar Plum's expression changed. Would they? She asked. Oh yes, Marie declared, especially Clara. I see so much of myself in her. She's very clever. I think you two would be very good friends. Sugar Plum didn't reply. Marie could tell her friend was upset. She didn't want it to be this way. This was their special time together. She wanted it to be happy, like old times. Maybe, she said slowly, I could try to invent something, a machine to bring you back. I don't know how I'd do it. I can't guarantee it's even possible, but perhaps. Unexpectedly, Marie coughed, her words catching in her throat. She coughed again. Before she knew what was happening, a terrible fit overwhelmed her. She held one hand to her mouth and the other to her chest as she doubled over on the ice, unable to catch her breath. What's wrong? Sugar Plum asked anxiously. What's happening? I'm all right, Marie gasped. Her ribs hurt. Sugar Plum held her shoulders, trying to steady her. I'll get you some water. A moment later, she held an ice cup to Marie's lips. Drink this, she urged. Marie did so. The cold water numbed her throat and spread down through her chest. After several more sips, the worst of the coughing subsided. Thank you, Marie regained her composure. Sometimes I just start coughing so badly I don't know why. I've never seen you like that, Sugar Plum said with urgency. For a moment the hard mask was lifted, and Sugar Plum's face was the one Marie remembered, kind and attentive, but clouded with fear. I'm sure I'll be all right, Marie assured her. It will pass. I do remember the old days, Sugar Plum said hurriedly. I remember everything, from the moment you made me. Oh, Marie, tell me your promise. Say it again. Promise? Marie asked, confused. That you will always come back, Sugar Plum urged. Promise you will always return, no matter what. Marie started. Please, Sugar Plum said, desperate. Marie looked at her friend's face. The lingering pain from her coughing fit ached in her chest. I promise.